Welcome to Chris Cast Nomad Life. Welcome to Chris Cast Nomad Life.
Back, everybody. In today's episode, we're diving into one of the beautiful topics, schooling. I still remember my school days when I was back in India. I grew up in a very little small village, and then I go to school to a new city. And everybody speaks English. I come from this little village, and everybody here is speaking English. That was overwhelming at that age for me. Now imagine you are coming from different country, different world altogether, and your kids are coming here, new language, new world, new system altogether. So, as a parent and as a child, schooling system is a really big part of our life. So, choosing the right schooling means choosing the right path or giving the right path for your children. So if you are an expat who's thinking to find the right schooling system for your children, this episode is especially for you. So one of the very first and biggest questions families face after arriving in Spain is schooling. There are multiple choices, public, private, bilingual, international. The choices can overwhelm you, especially when you're new. So in today's episode, we're going to talk in detail about what schooling is all about in Spain, especially focusing on the expat area. So, what are the realities? What are the challenges and things that someone could have told you or someone would have explained you earlier? So, whether you've just landed in Spain or you're planning to move or you're already here and trying to make the best decision for your child, this conversation will give you a clarity, confidence, and practical insight. So, let's get started.
Welcome to Chris Cast Nomad Life.
Welcome everybody to Chris Cass Nomad Life. In today's episode, we're joined by Sinéad Galvin. She is the
hmm
founder of Steps into Spain, a boutique education consultancy based in Madrid. And Sinead has been helping families, especially those who relocated from abroad, finding the right school and navigate the Spanish schooling system with confidence. So Sinead is here for almost 2 decades. So she's deeply she's immersed in the local education landscape. So I'm so happy to have you here. We're going to dive in detail to understand the schooling system in Spain.
Great. Thanks very much, Chris. It sounds 2 decades in Spain or here in Madrid. I never expected that. But as you'll probably see yourself, Madrid kind of sucks you in.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah. All right. Let's
Great.
start with your intro and your personal journey. I would like to know
hmm
how did you start working with families on schooling in Spain? What was your own experience as a parent
hmm
in Spain's education system?
Okay, that's a great question. And there's a really long story, so I can try and make it a little bit shorter. So when I first came to Spain, when I first moved to Madrid, which is about 20 years ago, I was teaching English. I think it's when I was teaching English in different language academies. And then I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to work with the British Council, a project with the British Council and La Comunidad de Madrid, the education board. And I began teaching English within Spanish public schools across the city. And I did that for about 3 years, which really gave me a good insider's view of how it works and everything about it, because it's quite different. I'm Irish, and the system is quite different compared to Ireland. And during that time, whilst teaching, I got a lot of my friends, both that live here in Spain, that are Spanish, or foreign friends, international friends, asking me all the time about the schools and how does it work and when do you apply and what's needed and et cetera, et cetera. And then when my contract was, I was there for about 3 years. And then once my contract finished, it was kind of, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And that's when I got the idea of Steps into Spain and helping families to find schools for their children. And obviously as well, I started looking for schools as well for my own children, but obviously it was a bit easier because I was already working in a school and understood the system. But for families moving to Spain or families who live here and haven't been brought up in Spain, it can be quite confusing.
Very true. A lot of our viewers in our community are expats,
hmm
and I think our conversation would really help them, and I'm so glad that you're on the show. We will talk more in detail about your journey. My first
Great.
thought is you were here for 20 years and you moved as a English teaching assistant from Ireland. I thought you were from the US, but thanks.
No,
So, what was
my name
your,
gives me away.
oh yeah, Galvin,
Mm.
okay.
No, Sinead, like
Uh,
Sinead O'Connor.
Sinead O'Connor, okay.
Do you not know Sinead O'Connor? She was. She died a couple of years ago. She was a very famous Irish singer,
Hmm. Excuse
and
me,
she's helped me with
knowledge
my name.
on music industry. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, Sinead, I'm gonna check out who is Sinead
you should.
O'Connor.
You're in for a treat. She's great.
Okay, thank you. Beautiful. Let's see. And I was about to ask you, what was
Mhm.
the most surprising factor when you learned about the schooling system?
Let's see. I mean, I suppose I compare, and I think everybody does. You compare it to what you're used to, what it was for you when you were growing up. And say in Ireland, we've got, say, public schools, the state schools, or we've got private schools. And there's no school in between. There's no in between school. Whereas here in Spain, you've got the three main types of schools. You've got state schools, private schools, and then there's that school in between, which is called a concertado school, which is a private school that's subsidized by the state. And I think that was something that surprised me quite a bit to kind of to understand where does that fit in between the schools and why really does it exist and that it's another option for families.
Right.
There's a couple of differences. I can continue, but if you want to move on to other questions, you let me know.
I think we overlapped with what I was about to ask you about the schooling
Mm.
system. What are the schooling system that we have? Maybe if you give us an idea, what are the schooling system and how it works?
So it's the schooling system in Spain, kind of the types of schools here in Spain. Is
Yeah,
that what you're
schooling. Yeah,
okay?
the
So
types.
So the main types, you've got the state school, los públicos, or los concertados, and private schools. Those are the main three categories of schools. And then say within the private schools, you have international schools, which can teach in English or teach in French. They've got curriculums from other countries. Or you've got the more alternative schools like the Montessori schools, Waldorf schools. And then with the public schools and the concertado schools, you can have a Spanish school, which is teaching all 100% in Spanish, or you can have bilingual schools, which is about 30% of the curriculum is taught in English.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
wonderful. And now let's talk about the pricing. What comes with
Mm-hmm.
the government area, like the subsidy ones, and what are I think the
Mm-hmm.
private one is something that you have to pay end to end.
Yeah,
And what about
exactly.
bilingual? Maybe you could give us an idea about the pricing here. Is it
Sure.
depends on each region, like Madrid, Barcelona, or something specific?
I mean, say the public school would be the same all over Spain. The public school, you don't pay any tuition fees in a public school. What cost that you might have to, or that you would pay, would be your lunch fees, so your monthly lunch fees, and you might have to pay school books. Some school books will be covered, and then you might have to buy additional workbooks and say the material, like your pencils, a school bag, and things like that. And that would apply all over Spain. The concertado schools, and this can be quite controversial. The concertado schools all price their schools differently, and it can be quite difficult to find out their fees because they rarely publish their fees on their websites. And sometimes, and this has happened to me with I mean, I started my business back in 2020, and I've helped families apply to concertado schools. And some concertado schools will not share their fees until a family has enrolled their child, which seems a bit unfair, I
Yeah.
think. But the concertado schools, a roundabout figure, I would say, would be about €200 for the tuition fee, which it's known as the quota voluntaria, and then say another €200 for lunch fees for your food. But there are a lot of additional costs. You've got a school uniform, you've got all of your books, and of course there are other things throughout the year that you pay for. All of the extracurricular activities are extra. And then in a private school, it really depends on the private school. You could begin maybe at about €700 a month, and it can go all the way up. The international schools are the most expensive.
Okay. Got it. So the bilingual, you call it consultados.
No, but it's not that it's a bilingual. The concertado school can be bilingual or it can be Spanish, the same as the public school.
Ah,
And the bilingual program in both the public school And the concertado school is the exact same.
All right. Okay. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. So
Hmm.
that makes sense. What about the curriculum? Is there a difference in the way they teach between these three types of schools that we just talked about?
Yes. I mean, it's the way that they teach, and Spanish education is very, very thorough, but it can be a lot that it's very content heavy. So
Mm,
students, they're exposed to a lot of content every day. They've got to memorize quite a lot. They'll take a lot of notes, and they do memorize the material very, very well. A private school can be the same as that, or if you choose something more alternative, like a Waldorf school or Montessori or Reggio, they're very different. They teach differently compared to the a Spanish school, and not all, but a lot can be a little bit more traditional.
right. Makes
It can be
sense.
very teacher centered.
Mhm. Do you think a tuition, like a private tuition, is important for the students, especially the expat family who are coming from different countries? Do you think like
Mm.
a private tutor is really important in each, or it's not necessary?
I I think it can help. I think there's different reasons, or under different circumstances. If your child is very young,
Mm,
at 5 years of age, most likely they don't need additional help, additional support. But I think when you get into primary school, which is from first grade upwards, and say mid-primary school upwards, I think it can be very helpful and reassuring for a child to have somebody outside of school that can support
yeah.
them. If they don't speak the language, if they don't speak any Spanish, then without a doubt they should get they should get additional Spanish lessons outside of school. Because if you go into any of the bilingual schools, they're going to learn math in Spanish. And obviously, you've got your Spanish language class, which is lengua. And lengua is a really, really difficult subject anyway. And even if the school is trying to support their child, if they've got another 25 children in the class, they can't
Mm,
give them the attention, the individual attention that they should get. So yes, I do recommend additional support outside of school.
right, right. And the grade system, I don't know if I'm diving in detail about the
Mm-hmm,
schooling itself inside the class. Do they have like a grading system or ranking
mm-hmm.
system does it uh, make a difference in the way the kids are raised in international schools and private schools and public schools?
Do you mean, are the children graded, or is there a ranking of all of the schools?
No, I'm curious about, let's say, a specific children called Mike is in public school.
Mm-hmm.
He's graded by what sense, like A grade, B grade, or they do have ranking
Okay.
systems, and is it different in different schools, or is it just the same everywhere?
In Spanish schools, it would all be very similar. They would
Okay.
follow the Spanish grading system, which instead of saying A, B, C, or D, is they do it by numerical. So
Hmm.
a 10, a 10 is the top, nueve is sobresaliente, and then it works its way down. Anything less than a five, then unfortunately the child has failed that exam. And that's
Uh-huh.
kind of standard across the Spanish system.
Okay, makes sense. Great, thank you. I'm now going to ask a couple of questions focusing on
Hmm.
the expat families.
Yeah.
And in your experience, Sinead, what
Hmm.
or how do the public schools integrate children's
Hmm.
when somebody comes with limited Spanish?
Yeah, good question. And this happens quite a lot. It can be hit and miss, but I would say it could be hit and miss in a public school, and it can definitely be hit and miss in a private school. The public school system, they would the teachers in general, or the teachers in all of the schools, they will try and help a child who doesn't speak the language. But if a child is saying, say, fifth grade upwards and doesn't speak any Spanish, it's very difficult for them in a classroom.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, but it's difficult. For that reason, the Spanish government, there's a program, and it's specifically for children who are families that move here to Spain and they don't speak the language. And it's called Aula Enlace. An Aula Enlace is a program for kids that don't speak the language. So that first year that they come to Spain, they're in a specific classroom within the school. And really, what the objective of that year is to learn Spanish.
Mm.
And that's what they kind of encourage children. And it's available for kids from fourth grade upwards. And that's
Wow.
kind of what they say to families. If your child doesn't speak any Spanish whatsoever, they're encouraged to join a school with Aula Enlace. And then once they've mastered the language, then they can really attend any school that they want.
Makes sense. Yeah, language is the foundation here in
Mm,
Spain.
it, without a
Yeah,
doubt, and it's really important to
yeah,
know the language.
nice. And aula enlace. I'm gonna look
Hmm.
for that link and maybe I will put it in the group description for
Yeah,
people to
yeah.
have a look at it.
I've helped a lot of families apply to Aula in Enlace because really, if
Yeah.
your child is say eighth grade, which is segundo de la ESO, no, yes, it's very, very difficult to go into a Spanish class.
Mm,
And not even that it's challenging. It can also be, your self-confidence, your
yeah,
self-esteem that really you're not understanding. So it can be really, it can have really negative effects on the child.
makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think we should, I will highlight that in the description that what Aula does
Yep.
and how people can get benefit out of it. My next question is about how early should families start planning the school placements when relocating to
Hmm.
Spain or who's planning for a baby? How does things work?
I mean, it depends on the type of school that you're looking for. Because if you're looking for a public or concertado school, those schools have specific application dates and say
Okay.
it's going to come up in March. That's the first round of applications. Then there's a second round in July, and then again in September. And to apply to those schools, you need to be living here. So say when I help families who really want a public school or a concertado school, they could begin working with me almost a year in advance because what they want to try and decide for it find a neighborhood that they like and a neighborhood that is a good selection of schools because you might not get your first choice, you might not get your second choice. So sometimes they begin working a year in advance with me and they begin planning it, but really you can only apply when you're here. Whereas with a private school, families can begin thinking about a private school almost 2 years in advance. And it means even then, depending on the school and depending on the age group, there might be a waiting list. But I always advise families the sooner that you begin to plan it and begin speaking to schools, the better. And for a lot of families who are relocating, the school is going to decide where they're going to live. So it's kind of okay. Now we finalize the school. We know where we're going to. We know this is the school, and now we're going to find housing and lots of other little things that a family's got to think about when they're relocating.
Wow. 1 year, 2 year. That's actually
Yeah.
quite a planning there. Okay, nice. But you were also mentioning that there are certain regions for good schools, and is there any region that you would recommend for good schoolings in Madrid specifically?
No, I mean, it's not what's everybody takes like a good school. I get asked this all the time. A good school is a school. We all assume that a good school is going to be where our child is happy and the teaching staff are happy. And
Yeah.
then everything else is going to come from that. But then, depending on each family, different families have different ideas of, they look for something very different in a school. So, what's good for one family might not necessarily work for another family. So, really,
Mm,
I only ever recommend schools that I think that I feel meet the family's requirements. So to say a good, a lot of families that move here, they like to move into the city. They like more central neighborhoods. Others like to live further outside of the city, more in the suburbs. But what my recommendation would always be find a neighborhood that has a lot of schools. So you're
mm.
not because if depending on what point of the year that you apply, sometimes if it's a late application, then you can only apply to the schools within that neighborhood, which is a bit
Got it.
restrictive.
Oh yeah. Okay. Wow. And if somebody's around Alcobendas, I tell you there's like about 6 schools in this zone in Alcobendas,
Mhm.
Marqués de la Valdavia. And I think it's amazing to have these many number of schools around.
Yeah, without
Great.
a doubt. But then what the down or not the downside, perhaps it's our human nature. If there's a lot of choice, then it's really difficult to know, okay, to choose one. If there's only
Yeah,
one school in your town, well, it's like, oh, okay, we're all going to that school. But more choice and we doubt ourselves a little bit more. Then we can make a final decision a little bit more difficult.
absolutely.
But Alcobendas does have a lot of schools. It's got a lot of people.
Yeah. They say it's a pueblo, it's a village, but it is not. It is a town in itself.
No, no, without
Great.
it. And I mean, yeah, it is a town in itself. I mean, I'm Irish and Ireland, the entire population of Ireland is about the same size population of Madrid.
Oh yeah.
So everything is a lot bigger
Okay, I've
here.
never been to Ireland. Someday I
Hmm.
would. But I'm
And listen
I'm
to Sinead O'Connor.
yeah, sure. My last question, where
Hmm.
about time. I'm curious to know, since you come from Ireland, you can
Hmm.
compare the schooling system in Ireland and Spain. What do you think is one of the best or like the strength of the Spanish schooling system when you compare with the other countries around?
The strength of the Spanish, I do think the Spanish education system is very thorough. I
Mm,
mean, students, they fit a lot of content into the number of years that students are studying, and students have to work really, really hard in Spain to do well. It's very, very intense. Is it maybe too intense? I'm not so sure. They start students, from a very young age, from about third grade upwards, that students get a lot of let's say tests, exams, and an awful lot of homework. So from a young age, children are used to doing all of this. So really, when they move into secondary, it's not as big a shock. I'm not sure that's actually some people see that as a strength. I'm not so sure it's a strength. I sometimes think that the school day here in Spain, it's a long day. It's from 9 until 4 and 9 until 5. And if they then get about 2 hours of homework and they're in fifth grade, seems like they spend a lot of time with school,
that is
but it
important.
certainly prepares them.
Yeah, it actually prepares them.
Mm.
You're right. Well,
Mm.
thank you, Sinead. What an insightful conversation. Huge thanks to you and your boutique steps into Spain and your
Thank you,
expertise
Chris.
and your real life stories. It's a practical advice. It's a
Hmm.
gold, I would say, being here for 20 years and learning about the schooling system. You're here happily sharing with us. I will definitely leave your contact steps into Spain for
Sure.
people to get into touch with you. And there are a lot of
Hmm.
expat families here always moving around. Maybe they would really like to get in touch with you to understand or plan for their schooling system.
Well, here I am. I would love to hear from them. And thank you so much, Chris. It's been really nice chatting to you about schools in Madrid.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Chris Cast, Nomad Life. Welcome to Chris Cast, Nomad Life.